Sonic Boom Comic Issue 7. The previous issue came off like a sudden horror movie story where reality ensued and the heroes were all killed one by Eggman's plan. Sonic fell off a cliff, trapped in a go-kart, so did Tails, Knuckles got blown up, and Amy was swarmed by scary-looking badniks while completely defenseless. So since this is just a comedy comic and Sonic with no guts or effort put into it, this will probably just be a bunch of stupid Deus Ex Machinas to justify all the main characters not dying because they were all in certain fatal situations last time. Because I know what kind of lazy writing to expect by this point. Wow, this was even more insultingly stupid than I thought. Sonic saves himself in the falling car because he grabs a text box that says he's in free fall. Oh, thank God that's not what saves him. Instead, Tails saves him because naturally he did remember that he can fly. You'd think Eggman would have made his go-kart trap him in it. We really didn't need that fourth wall-breaking joke. And it's confusing that Sonic references terminal velocity when he's falling when this is Boom Sonic. But apparently, in this continuity, Boom Sonic went through a place called terminal velocity too. He met the Wisps too. Flynn will do anything to have a pointless, nostalgic game reference, even if it makes no sense. You'd think an original continuity would have an original past for Sonic. But yeah, it sure is a good thing Tails is so strong that he can actually hold the cart's weight while it's falling. To be fair, he could hold both Sonic and Knuckles' weight in Sonic Heroes. But even then, that was only for a couple of seconds. They'll need to buy some time. And shockingly, there's no attempt at an explanation right away for how Amy and Knuckles survived, even though Knuckles was literally blown up after hitting a bomb. And Amy was swarmed by duck robots with shark beaks without her hammer. At least I can believe that she managed to run away, but there's no indication the two were close enough to each other to meet up, let alone any indication that they were all close enough to each other that they could feasibly break Sonic's fall with that Thunder Whip thing. Enter Beam, that's what it's called. It took me forever to remember what it was called because I've never played Rise of Lyric. I thought only Tails could summon that thing. At least it is good to have characters have a useful special ability that also makes things more unique. And magical powers like Sonic's speed and Tails' flight haven't given just as little explanation as this arbitrary power. But still, so far this is about the level of lazy-ass writing I've come to expect from Flynn. I figured the hero surviving all their certain death traps wouldn't be satisfying to learn about at all. And the comic doesn't even take that long to tell you that Amy and Knuckles survived. They don't even try to keep the suspense. At least early Archie would keep the suspense going for another scene. I'm assuming that we'll be told how Amy and Knuckles survived in a flashback after this, because I'm naive enough to still give Flynn the benefit of the doubt, even at this point, apparently. Maybe I'm just putting too much faith in Flynn again, because every single time I'd gotten to a point in Archie Sonic that I'd heard about him writing, I was always confused and disappointed. Like when Nicole went right up to the Iron Queen. At least Sonic lampshades them getting here so fast, which was needed since I thought Sonic was way ahead of all of his other friends. But sadly, we're not given an explanation right away, and instead the writer feels the need to make Knuckles break the fourth wall for no reason. And the sheer fact that he thought to have Amy complain about fourth wall breaking just pisses me off even more because it's like he's responding to the fans' complaints. And if the writer knew that people hated this, he shouldn't have kept doing it. That's common sense. Knowing the writing sucks is even less of an excuse to keep writing like that. The fact that it's a comedy isn't what annoys me, it's the fact that literally all of its jokes so far have been so pathetically unfunny that it's painful to the point where it just comes off as intrusive. If you can't do a comedy right, don't do it at all. At least with the dozens of puns in early Archie, I could kinda appreciate them because it's not like I've never made puns, at least when they're so obvious that they're handed to me. Even puns are a lot more clever than fourth wall breaking jokes which require no talent at all to make. Knuckles lampshades that they need to do less joking and more pounding some sense into Eggman. Boom comic in a nutshell. But again, if the writer knows there's too much joking, he should stop. And I'm pissed that we haven't been told how Knuckles and Amy got here so fast. Instead of us getting a proper explanation, the writer's priorities were so skewed that he chose to make a shitty fourth wall break instead, and completely forgot to justify the entire reason Sonic survived. How far ahead was Sonic's cart of his friends at that point? They wouldn't have been right below him when he started falling, would they? Well, maybe if the racetrack was just curving around that way, and the point was to drive in a circle while going up in a spiraling mountain. Maybe that makes sense. But that's still confusing. It shouldn't be up to the audience to fill in the giant plot holes. If the writing had care and thought put into it, we would be told the explanations by the story. It's not like Amy and Knuckles can teleport and psychically knew that Sonic was falling somewhere. Like, Knuckles had rings to protect him from the explosion that could have put Antoine in a coma last issue. That would be nice. Amy could have had rings too. I was wondering if a Genesis wave from Worlds Unite was what saved them all, and that would have actually been a better explanation than this. Sonic says to hold off on the fighting, and somehow he decides to insist on beating Eggman in a race fair and square, even though he just said that Eggman cheated and never planned on playing nice to begin with. Tails at least lampshades that they should have seen Eggman's cheating coming, but that doesn't make up for them being colossal idiots to justify the previous issue. Sonic's gonna be an idiot here. But yeah, Sonic has no excuse whatsoever for this. He's trying to talk as if he needs to win the race fairly to prove a point, as if he's self-righteous now. But what's the point of proving that point to Eggman? Just run up to him at the speed of sound and punch him, and bring your friends. Maybe then you can go back to the race. It'd make more sense if he suggested that, and said that he wanted to finish the race for the fun of it. But still, logically they should be so far behind the other racers at this point. Sonic's car fell off a cliff, so short of them outright cheating and ruining the point of Sonic's intent to be fair, how could they possibly have a chance of winning? This writing is stupid. I was confused at first when I saw Tails become gray for no reason, and he looked utterly unrecognizable. Then I realized there was an inexplicably anime art style choice made to make him look scared, and a continuity meant to appeal to Americans. But I think his scared expression did that job well enough. Even John Gray's art never did this. Tails asks Sonic how he could get back on the road, as the story has the logic, for once, of Tails not being able to fly his car all the way back up there. So Knuckles uses his super strength, spinning his car around him in a tornado to build up momentum and fling him all the way above the cliff. So good. This victory was satisfying. For once, the story made some kind of sense, because it has Knuckles being useful taking advantage of a previously established magical ability he has. Though we still don't know why he does have this ability. How can Knuckles spin something at super speed when he's not the one with super speed? But I guess the power of the Master Emerald infused him with his powers. Like what basically happened in Archie. As for why we never see it in Sonic Boom, obviously it got destroyed. Eggman probably screwed up at some point, like dropped in the volcano. I still can't get over the convenience of Knuckles being here to help Sonic though. It's not like they have a watch that can teleport their friends to them whenever they need them. Sonic's cart quickly catches up with Eggman's and is right on his tail. Really? That fast? Wouldn't all the go-karts be the same speed for fairness' sake? And the race doesn't have items. So really, since his cart didn't literally land right next to Eggman's and have a running start instead of braking, it still makes no sense that he's right up close to his cart. Eggman would have won the race with all that bought time. Why can't he? What's wrong with giving him even a small victory like this? Winning the race won't destroy the world. AOSCH Eggman is easily better than this guy because he's constantly getting victories from looting villages. So you assume that he's looting villages successfully every day. And he's able to do stuff like enslave civilians into doing what he wants. And he makes robots that constantly think up and design creative traps for Sonic, even if they don't succeed. Which is much more impressive than Boom Eggman, who literally just makes robots, which always fail. At least with him looting villages, it's not like you always see Sonic get the loot back to the villages. So that's an implied victory for Eggman. And yeah, braking. Logically, Sonic's cart would have broken into pieces from the sheer impact of landing after being thrown by Knuckles, giving Knuckles an idiot moment that would make sense. Unless it's made out of carbon nanotubes or something. And why would Eggman go through that extra effort for his enemies, his carts? He wants them to lose. Maybe Sonic's ring energy is extending to his cart. Anyways, Eggman tells his cart to launch all the countermeasures. And while I immediately imagined a bunch of missiles would get sent out for Sonic to avoid, I forgot that this was Boom Robotnik, who's horribly off in this continuity. So instead, all Sonic has to do is avoid a random mechanical fist coming out of a trapdoor from the ground ahead of them, and some other metal trap, which was made of an indestructible metal when it appeared in AOSTH. And Eggman rides his cart so that it gets flung by a ramp. At least that was Sonic-like. It's overwhelming to see so many different Sonics and Eggman on the same panel. At first it just defaulted to looking at the center of it, and then I realized it was supposed to depict a lot more than just one instance. I'm not even sure what this first Sonic is supposed to be suffering from. At least it looks like Sonic and Eggman are equally matched. Like, Sonic had a hard time screeching his car to avoid the fist. At least it looks that way since his expression's like that. So we got somewhat inconvenienced. You would think this panel would be depicting Sonic getting a victory and then Eggman getting a victory and so on and so forth. Do you think they would be equally matched? He got somewhat inconvenienced, but even the text above Eggman says he's discouraged, as he has a silly pout and is hungover. It's trying to be charming by being silly, but the writing is too frustrating for it to work. You're just too distracted by the plot holes and shitty dialogue. At least with the earliest of Archie, while it's not like it never had plot holes, normally my only problem with it was nitpicking the dialogue, and the stories as a whole were charming, it made sense. Well, this is just bad writing. We didn't even have the effort of a Deus Ex Machina for Amy and Knuckles. There's literally no explanation for them surviving. I don't see why any particular go-kart would be made with higher speed than the others. So how could Sonic's cart just casually speed ahead of Eggman's without Eggman having to hit a wall or gotten slowed down by a slope burst? In fact, the last I saw of his cart, he was being given a burst of speed by a ramp, so he should be ahead. Finally, Eggman makes things interesting nearly halfway into the story by making his cart into a spider cart, giving it extendable claws and legs. He wouldn't have waited so long to do this. This is Eggman we're talking about. It's not like he was insisting on beating Sonic fair and square. It is cool that he's taking advantage of his engineering talent to be unique in a race, though. Of course he'd have that advantage over Sonic. Logically, Sonic should lose the race because his cart has nothing over him. At least if Sonic kept insisting on playing fair to actually prove his point. If he gives up on playing fair, though, he'll be able to spin dash through the legs connected to the wheels and ruin Eggman's cart in 2 seconds. At least if Eggman doesn't grab him with the claws first. I'm sure he'd bullshit his way out of the claws, though. Our time is wasted by Six's reaction to seeing what Sonic and Eggman are up to. Of course, she confirms to herself that she was right about her predictions, although she wonders why Eggman's race cart hasn't turned into a Mecha Dragon yet. I love seeing her with a serious expression. It's a nice twist to put on her character, making her the straight man who's properly paranoid. It's like she feels like a realistic character for once. Sonic narrowly avoids a claw hitting the ground by turning his cart, and you'd think that would slow him down so much that he'd never get to the finish line before Eggman does. Especially since Styx decides to come save him for no reason when she has no reason to think she could be helpful at all. He's in a fast cart, and she's on the ground. I'd hate her if she was nothing but the load causing her friends trouble. Fortunately, she was just a minor distraction instead of ruining things for Sonic like I expected. Then Tails comes in with the yellow biplane with Amy and Knuckles on the wings. Because apparently his plane was near where they last were all along. Just in case. Just so they could have a way to come here. This doesn't feel satisfying. Tails wasn't suspicious of Eggman last issue. So he had no reason to hide his plane somewhere on the race course near where Sonic's cart fell. Did he even know what the course would be? I could forgive this just fine if we had seen Sonic pick up his friends one by one and run to this plane while carrying them, but we didn't. So the two of them fend off Eggman's claws out of nowhere, and Sonic wins the race because of that random Deus Ex Machina. I don't even remember seeing Tails' yellow plane before, though I like that it matches his fur. Styx then jumps onto Eggman, surprising him while he's trying to drive his vehicle, being a badass Chekhov's gunman giving Eggman some comeuppance. She'd be especially badass if she gave him a black eye. How'd she get in front of his cart so fast when the last time we saw her she was before the finish line, and she certainly isn't faster than his cart? I guess she had time to catch up to him last page. Sonic runs up the leg of his go-kart and destroys it. I guess he only didn't do that earlier because getting out of his go-kart would be considered cheating from tampering with another cart. It's not like cheating would make him blow up. Why does he care? Knuckles complains that Tails should have landed the plane closer to the fight, and Tails has a nonsensical explanation that parking's at a premium and he doesn't have exact change, even though he's in the middle of a tropical island, not a city. So I'm pretty sure he'd be able to park it wherever he wants, especially since he's one of the heroes. I hate forced jokes, they're so intrusive. Amy smashes a part of the cart's leg, Knuckles tears one off, and Tails tears one with his tails while flying ahead. But that's all redundant since the next panel is Sonic spin dashing all over the mecha to destroy it, so he didn't need their help at all. Amy then asks where Styx landed. You mean she got flung off? I thought she'd still be on Eggman attacking him. Instead, she got flung a long way into the jungle, and I'm guessing she'll be magically uninjured afterwards. At least he's drawn to look menacing in the shadows here, reminding me of what Eggman should be. But then he's written to say evil stuff as he pathetically leaves on the one wheel attached to his chair, and Sonic stares at him, so I wonder why Eggman's laughing after he lost. Why aren't any of Sonic's friends destroying what's left of Eggman's cart instead of letting him leave? Sonic then says he can't take all the credit and only one because of his friends, being surprisingly saccharine and sweet to them for Boom Sonic. Rise of Lyric Sonic was all about not having faith in his friends, so this comes out of nowhere, and it makes me feel like it's only here as a meta teach the kiddies the lesson that you have to appreciate your friends thing. Well, at least someone lampshades that this is corny. But I'd rather see a character be too sympathetic and nice than the other extreme. You need to have Sonic have nice moments to remind us why we should still like him when he's constantly being a smug jerk winning way too easily. So this is good, but it comes out of nowhere for him. Then it turns out that corny was just a pun based on the fact that the beaver was eating some corn. I really could have done without that. No one would ever say corny to compliment corn because that's stating the complete obvious. We see Styx in pain because a coconut had fallen on her head, and she asked it for gossip like she's got brain damage. But I'm sure that'll have no consequences because we need to teach kids that life doesn't have those. Great writing. And she's right next to a portal out of nowhere that I'm sure is going to be the excuse for Worlds Unite. Because money grubbery. It's impossible to read this off panel where the text is so zoomed out, by the way. I would have done a better job by focusing on each panel one at a time, like would be common sense. This issue is by Ian Flynn, and somehow managed to be even more lazily written than I expected. I always assumed that the heroes would be saved by nonsensical Deus Ex Machinas after the writer wrote himself into a corner last issue. What I didn't expect was that there'd be no explanation whatsoever for Amy and Knuckles surviving, and magically being right there when Sonic was falling off a cliff. Last time I checked, they were way behind him. This didn't even try to make sense. It being a comedy isn't a magical excuse for bad writing that makes all the bad writing perfectly okay. That's not logic. At least the story became kinda enjoyable after that, with Sonic racing with Eggman. I liked that Eggman's go-kart had extended limbs. But I assumed he'd fire missiles at Sonic, because I'm familiar with like every other iteration of Robotnik. Nope, this is the out-of-character Robotnik by Ian Flynn. I'm really confused with this ending because we had foreshadowing in the previous story that Eggman had a machine that was gathering data on the heroes. So I was expecting that they'd all be attacked by a flying dragon robot taking advantage of that data. Apparently the writer forgot about that plot thread, but didn't forget to mention that Styx was expecting a Mega Dragon, which any other Robotnik would have used because they actually know how to be epic. But this is a pathetic Robotnik, who forgot that this was an action series. So he somehow manages to lose to Sonic in a race where his go-kart had an obvious advantage over Sonic's. At least it made sense that Sonic could just steer his go-kart to avoid the obstacles and claws, and it made sense that Knuckles would have the super strength to throw his car back up to the track from the bottom of the cliff. It doesn't make sense that this wouldn't destroy his cart when it landed on the ground afterwards. And it also doesn't make sense that he caught up to Eggman so fast when he should have had a huge lead by this point. Instead, Eggman somehow manages to lose when it would have been a brilliant twist to have him win the race. You have to have him earn some victories, you know. And somehow, even though the last issue is building up to an epic action scene with the Mecha Dragon using the heroes' strengths against them, nothing like that ever happened, and Eggman's cart just ripped off Dr. Octopus instead because the writer's so obsessed with twists that he doesn't care about writing the best he can, and actually following up with the foreshadowing he established. On the one hand, the hero surviving was even more stupid and lazy than I expected, with half of them not even having an explanation, when realistically Amy Knuckles would have been killed. But on the other hand, at least it was interesting seeing Sonic race Eggman in that go-kart when I finally slogged through that horrendously written beginning with the terrible dialogue, and finally got to the point where the story picked up. But too much of the race was glossed over on that one panel that overwhelmed me with a million different Sonics and Robotniks that somehow managed to be about representing multiple different points in time.